This conference will now be recorded.
So now I'm showing you one video. You have to tell me what is the finding in that. The surgeon is asking the patient to close the eye very tightly. Tight. They have to close the eye. So what did you observe in this video? Anyone can answer, but you have to.
The left eye is twitching, ma'am, after he opens the eyes.
Yeah, very good. There is some twitching in the left eye. Once he's closely tightening the eyes, when he's releasing, you can see some twitchings are there. See this? The small movements, these are called as twitchings. So this is called as blepharospasm. Blepharo means, what is the meaning of blepharo? Can anyone tell me what is the meaning of blepharo? What is the meaning of blepharo?
Eyelids, ma'am.
Eyelids.
So, what is the meaning of blepharo? Means eyelids. Spasm means muscle spasms. You know, no? What is muscle spasm? That is called as muscle spasm. Okay. So, the patient with muscle spasms is called as blepharospasm. Okay. So, what is this blepharospasm? Just give me a second. So you are able to see what is blepharospasm. Your eyes will blink or some twitches will be there in the lid margins. That is called as blepharospasm. Okay. So coming to introduction. Okay, there will be blinking, focal dystonia. Please don't give your attendance in the chat box, please. Every time I'll be requesting you and you'll be doing the same thing. So there will be focal dystonia, excessive eye blinking will be there. This can be two types, benign essential blepharospasm or secondary blepharospasm. Benign essential means it is usually congenital. Secondary blepharospasm due to many other causes. Okay. So epidemiology, usually it is a familial autosomal dominant, but have some doubts regarding that. So risk factors, what are the predisposing factors? Family history of dystonia, there is a hereditary predisposition. History of any head injury with loss of consciousness can lead to blepharospasm. This is one of the secondary blepharospasm causes. Some history of blepharitis or conjunctivitis. Any trauma during periorbital or dental procedures. Dry eyes and usually postmenopausal due to some hormonal disturbances. These are all the causes of blepharospasm. So what are the protective factors for this? Smoking and coffee are the protective factors. So what is the basic etiology? There will be basal ganglia abnormality. That is a basic etiology. There will be basal ganglion abnormality. There will be increased gray matter at right somatosensory cortex. Okay. So what is the pathophysiology? There will be decrease in the dopamine. There will be decrease, 30% of decrease in the dopamine. which leads to trigeminal nerve circuit inhibition. There will be inhibitions in the trigeminal nerve circuit, followed by, because orbicularis oculi, which is the muscle present surrounding the eyeball, is supplied by the trigeminal nerve. There will be weakness of the orbicularis oculi muscle. Imbalance and compensation to increase blinking. Eye dryness will be there, which further causes increased blinking. So initially there will be increased blinking will be there, which further causes dryness. Because of dryness, the patient will blink more to get the moisture to the eye. Okay, corneal surface. So what are the manifestations? As I told you, there will be involuntary eyelid spasms. Always remember these are involuntary spasms. Excessive blinking will be there. Usually bilateral it is, but sometimes unilateral also. Associated with the eye dryness. Dryness of the eyes will be there because of involuntary blinking, much blinking, and uncomfortable periorbital sensation will be there. Because there will be involuntary blinking, there will be some discomfort in the eyeball. So symptoms get better after waking up because there will be no blinking during sleep. Precipitating factors are bright light. Once the patient is having blepharospasm, the precipitating factors are bright light while chewing, driving, any stress, anxiety. While yarning, whistling, singing, neck extension when using sunglasses. But sometimes it could be a part of Meek syndrome also. So complications for this, daily functional activities will be disturbed because of this involuntary blinks. There will be difficulty in reading, writing and driving. This leads to decreased quality of life. There will be functional blindness, 32 from 1 lakh patients. Anxiety and depression will be there. So there is a grading for blepharospasm that is called as Jacobic rating scale, depending upon the severity and depending upon the frequency both. Depending upon the severity, if there is no blepharospasm, then there is none. One mean minimal increased blinking present only with external stimuli. I told you what are the precipitating factors. If there is only precipitating factor, then the blinking there, but it will be minimal. Grade 2, mild but spontaneous eyelids fluttering without actual spasm. Definitely noticeable, possibly embarrassing, but not functionally disabling. So grade 2 is not functionally disabling. Grade 3, it is a moderate, very noticeable spasms of eyelids only, mildly incapacitating. Grade 4, it is a severe form, incapacitating spasms of eyelid and possibly other facial muscles. So depending upon the severity and depending upon the frequency, grade 0 none, grade 1 slightly increased frequency of blinking, grade 2 eyelid fluttering which lasts than 1 second in duration. This is only fluttering. Always remember grade 2 is always fluttering, and grade 3 comes into the action is the spasm. Eyelid spasm lasting more than 1 second but eyes open more than 50% of a waking time. So grade 4, functionally blind due to persistent eye closure, blepharospasm, more than 50% of the waking time. So management, the most effective treatment is botulinum toxin. For refractory cases, drip brain stimulation surgery is needed. So what is this botulinum toxin? It blocks the presynaptic cholinergic receptors. So it inhibits the acetylcholine release. So usually in this we use type A botulinum toxin. So this is FDA approved. Only short-term temporary effect will be there for about 12 weeks to 1 year. Long-term can reduce efficacy probability due to antibody formation. So always short-term therapy is useful. Dose is 30 to 200 units per eye. Higher dose, higher frequency, but also higher side effects and complications. Complications with botulinum toxin are much when compared to the advantages. Most of the cinema actors or these heroines, they'll get botulinum toxin for age related facial problems, but they'll have many other complications for this, like local bruise will be there, ecchymosis at the site of injection will be there. Sometimes overdose can lead to ptosis, keratopathy, cornea may get damaged because of drops of botulinum toxin into the cornea, onto the cornea. Sometimes diplopia, leg of thalmus will be there, dry eyes can be there, mid facial weakness can be there, nasopharyngitis, respiratory tract infection. These are all the various side effects for with botulinum toxin. So where we give botulinum toxin, there are many sites where we can do botulinum toxin. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are the various places where we can give botulinum toxin. So coming to summary, blepharospasm is a focal dystonia. Main symptoms: excessive eye blinking, involuntary eyelid spasms. It will be there. So I'll show you one more video. Just give me some time. Just observe this patient. Why there will be functional disability? We can see seeing this patient. See, while opening, the patient is not able to open the eye spontaneously. Previous patient, you can see, because it is a mild phase, he is able to open the eye. But see, in this patient, he is not able to open the eye immediately. You can even see in this patient, it is bilateral and their upper lid twitchings are there. That's the reason he is not able to open his eyes. Okay, so this is about blepharospasm. This is the video showing botulinum toxin injection. You see how they are marking where to give injections. Okay, so these are sites where the doctor is going to inject toxin, botulinum toxin. So this is botulinum toxin type A. I told you that it is type A botulinum toxin. It is a freeze-dried toxin. That is lignocaine gel, so that it gets a little bit anesthetized. He's trying to anesthetize the areas where he's going to inject botulinum toxin. See how he is injecting. This is how he injects botulinum toxin. Are you able to follow or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. I'll show you one more video. You have to tell me what is that condition. So see this, what is this? This eye, the patient is able to close. You can see it again. What is this condition? So that is called as lag of thymus. The name itself indicates there will be lagging of the lid. So incomplete closure of the palpebral aperture when an attempt is made to close the eye is called as lag of thymus. You saw in the video that the patient is able to close her right eye, but while she is attempting to close the left eye, there is no proper closure of the palpebral aperture. What is palpebral aperture? When you open the eye, the distance between the upper lid margin and the lower lid margin is called as palpebral aperture. When you close the eye, there will be no palpebral aperture. But when you open the eye, the distance, the height between the upper lid margin and the lower lid margin is called as, that area is called as palpebral aperture. So there will be incomplete closure of the eyelid and exposure of the, you can see this is upper lid margin and lower lid margin. See, here you can see there is still visibility of the conjunctiva and the sclera, and the cornea has gone up. What does it mean when the cornea, when you're trying to close the eye, when the cornea has gone up, what does it mean? What is normal then? What is this? What is this?
Pupillary reflex, ma'am.
No, ma, the eyeball has gone up. When you're trying to close your eye, the eyeball is gone up. What is this phenomenon called? Bell's phenomenon, right? When you close your eye, your eyeball will go up and outwards. That is normal Bell's phenomenon. So here the patient is having normal Bell's phenomenon, but because of seventh nerve palsy, there is lag of thymus. See, you can see in this eye, he is able to close the eye, but here he is not able to close the eye, and you can see the palpebral aperture is still visible. So distance between the lower lid margin and the upper lid margin, the area, it is called as palpebral aperture. Okay. So what are the causes? Contraction of the lid due to some burn, chemical injury or some burns or something like that due to cicatrization, or it can be sometimes a congenital deformity. Ectropion, why in ectropion there will be lag of thymus? I'll just show you one. See, if we imagine that the patient is having ectropion in this, so there will be outward turning of the lid margin, right? There will be outward turning of the lid margin. The patient tries to close the eye, but because of outward turning of the lid margin, you can see some palpebral aperture. Okay, so because of ectropion, sometimes always when there is paralysis of the orbicularis oculi muscle, when there is proptosis due to exophthalmic goiter, orbital tumor, or any inflammatory condition, there will be lag of thymus. Proptosis means outward protrusion of the eyeball. It is called as proptosis. Then when there is outward protrusion of the eyeball, the palpebral aperture will be out. Okay, you are able to see it. That is called as lag of thymus. Laxity of tissues and absence of reflex blinking in patients who are extremely ill. These are all the conditions where we see lag of thymus. So how the patient comes to you? Inability to close the eye, symptoms of dry eyes. So I'll show you in this picture, because there is exposure even while the patient is sleeping, there will be exposure of this part, right? So there will be, because of continuous exposure to the air, there will be drying of this part. The dryness will be there, and because when you blink only, the water will drain into the lacrimal apparatus, right? When you blink, the water will, whatever is present here, it will drain into the lacrimal apparatus to the lacrimal punctum. When the patient is not able to blink, the water we cannot drain into the lacrimal apparatus, so the water will be coming out, it will be drooling out. Because of excessive drooling of this eye water from the eye, there will be dryness also. Because there is a dryness, the patient will have the cornea and conjunctiva, all these things will become eye dry. There will be blurring of vision also. Because of this excessive watering also, there will be foreign body sensation and photophobia. So what are the features the patient will have? Inability to close the eye, symptoms of dry eye like blurring of vision, foreign body sensations and photophobia. What are the signs you see? What you will observe is the patient will have incomplete closure of the eyelid, exposure of conjunctiva and cornea is there. There will be dryness, sometimes congestion also is there. Because of dryness, the patient will be rubbing his eye, so there will be congestion. Haziness of cornea, sometimes the cornea, because of excessive dryness, the patient develops punctate keratitis. Okay, if you still don't treat the patient this punctate keratitis, they coalesce and form an corneal ulcer. Okay, they form an ulcer. Okay, so this is about how the patient appears when he comes to you who is having lag of Fabry's. So medical treatment, because you want to maintain the moisture of the eyeball, you have to give lubricating eyeball. If any secondary bacterial infection is there because of dryness or pooling of the water in the eye, then you have to control the infection. Any secondary bacterial infection or any other infection is there, you have to control the infection. Protection of the ocular surface, ask the patient to wear goggles, ask the patient to wear bandage contact lenses, ask the patient to protect the ocular surface by giving these things. Okay, close affected eye and tape upper lid on or application of a suture. So if it is like this, close this eye manually and keep a plaster like this. We have to do this while the patient is asleep. Okay, while the patient is sleeping, compulsory you have to close the eyelids with a plaster. Or you can do tarsorrhaphy. What is tarsorrhaphy? You keep a suture from this upper eyelid to the lower eyelid and you tighten it. So this palpebral fissure will close. Okay, tarsorrhaphy means near the lateral tarsorrhaphy means near from here you apply 2 or 3 sutures so that the aperture gets closed. Okay, so these are all the treatment options for tarsorrhaphy, that is lateral tarsorrhaphy. What is paramedian tarsorrhaphy? I'll show you. So this is lateral tarsorrhaphy. Paramedian would be here. This is median tarsorrhaphy. This is paramedian tarsorrhaphy and lateral tarsorrhaphy is this one. Okay. So this is all about tarsorrhaphy. Sorry, this is all about Lagdorf and blepharitis. Do you have any doubts? If you have any doubts, please let me know.